It's the Arch Advocate Show. It's Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. The Arch Advocate Show. I advocate for the Great Awakening, the arrival to that transcendent spirit of truth, people. The Arch Advocate Show is dedicated to ushering in this time, this period that we're living in where people are beginning to wake up, right? And if you want to participate in the Great Awakening, if I want to participate in the Great Awakening, then I guess we're going to have to wake up, right? Now, if you think about it, right, there was some sort of wise man recently, probably like a football coach or somebody like that, said something to the effect, and pardon me that I can't give this person the proper credit because I didn't bother to look it up before I started this broadcast, but somebody once said, like, one way to achieve victory is just to figure out how to lose, and then don't do that, right? Don't, figure out how to lose, and just simply refrain from doing those things. If you have a losing strategy, right, you probably want to get that out of your playbook. But the problem is that being mankind as we are a prideful people. And we don't like to recognize when we're wrong, right? So let's just do this. Let's just take strategies as some sort of, benign thing, just some sort of fact that's off to the side and say, okay, well, this, if somebody does this, they're probably going to lose. Like Governor Cuomo, day before yesterday or whatever, whenever he said it, he comes out and he says, America was never great, right? Okay, well, that's a losing strategy. Can we all agree on that? That even Democrats are coming out and they're like, even his press office had to him and haw and give excuses for what he said, because they realized, like, after he said that, like, oh, you probably shouldn't have said that. So there's even a lot of Democrats, people on the left, that look at that and they're like, yeah, that's a loser, right? You can't, that's part of your strategy, and that's a good way to lose. That's a guaranteed way to lose. You say stuff like that, and number one, that's not true on a great many of levels. But you're sowing seeds of doubt and shame into people's heads, and nobody wants that. That's a losing strategy, right? Can you agree on that? Okay, right, so take that in your mind. You're like, yes, that's a losing thing, and if I ever see myself doing that, I should stop doing that, right? That's why, whenever you watch a State of the Union address, regardless of who's the president, you go back through every State of the Union address, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George Bush, Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, whoever, Richard Nixon, they always start off this way. The State of the Union is strong. They all start off that way. Why is that? Right? Well, it's a strategy. Right? There can be, groups of fascists running around calling themselves anti-fascists, bashing people, and yet the president will still get on stage and say that the State of the Union is strong. Why? Well, it's because it's a strategy. It's a winning strategy, right? You want people to be confident. And so you have to speak confidence into them. It's a strategy. And it's good. I don't have any problem with that. Even if there's things going on that are horrific, like what we have today. So if you want to be a part of the Great Awakening, then you're going to have to wake up to some of the things that perhaps we're doing that is a losing strategy. Now hold on, because now listen, this is how good preachers get thrown out of churches. This is how good politicians get thrown out of office. Right? When you start bringing up people's personal mess, people don't want to confront that. But listen, this is the Great Awakening, right? It should be called the Rude Awakening, because we're going to have to wake up to some of the things that we've been doing. That is losing a good way to lose, right? A losing strategy. Let's find out how to lose and then not do that, right? Case in point, right? Now, most of you are old enough to remember the impeachment of Bill Clinton, right? He was impeached not for cheating on his wife, not for using his immense power to acquire sexual favors from his subordinates. That's not what he was impeached for. He was impeached for lying about it to the American people. That's what got him impeached. right? And for those of you that there's probably one or two of you out there going, but he wasn't impeached. He stayed in office the whole time. That's impeachment does not mean removal from office. All right, I'm not going to get into the definition of impeachment right now. Bill Clinton was impeached, and everybody on the right, us, me and you, the people on the conservatives, the Christians, the people who vote Republican, us. We were all looking at that, weren't we? We were all looking at that going, that man is an infant, he's unfaithful to his wife, and that's bad for being the president, right? And that's sort of puritanical, right? I mean, I'm with you. That's, I think that's bad, right? And that's the reason why we think that bad comes from puritanical beliefs about marriage and sexuality and all that sort of thing, right? Now, we have a president who I'm a big fan of, right? I was not on board with Donald Trump when he was running as president, but I was even more so against Hillary Clinton because I don't see how anybody can look at that woman and think, yeah, that's a good idea. Let that lady be in charge of everything. Given her history and just the kind of lady she is, But I was very skeptical of President Trump, and now I'm fully on board, right? I am on board, and I believe in my heart that if a great deal of things happen, he could be the greatest president in the history of this country, aside from George Washington, who, by the way, refused to become king of the United States. And that's a different story by itself. And so that's why, in my opinion, there will never be anybody greater than George Washington. Right? The story of that man, whatever, that's a different topic. I believe that if President Trump does in fact drain the swamp and allows crooked politicians on all sides to be exposed so that the American people can see it, I believe that he will go down in history as the man who saved America. I believe that with my heart. However, we're not there yet. There's a whole lot of waking up that needs to happen, right? And if we turn our eye to it, if we turn away and decide to remain asleep, then the Great Awakening will not happen. And you and I have to be careful. We don't need to worry about what Governor Cuomo is doing. He's over there shooting himself in the foot all by himself. The only thing we need to do about him is abstain from voting in favor of him and making sure to show up to vote for who it is that we want in his place. That's it. Right? We don't need to twist and toil and think about what that man says. We just need to not vote for that guy. The left is taking care of themselves. They're killing themselves, right? We need to worry about us. We need to not do the things that we find reprehensible. We need to not do the things that are a losing strategy. So Bill Clinton cheats on his wife, and everybody says, what a horrible man. Right? We need to get him out of that office. He's unfaithful to his wife, and therefore he's probably unfaithful to the country, and whatever. Right? Then okay, you're right. I'm with you. I agree with you on that. And so when the topic comes up about our president's infidelity to his wives in the past, don't make excuses for it. Don't excuse it. Right? He doesn't need to be removed from office from it. We didn't hire him to be faithful to his wives and to correct the mistakes of his past. That's not what we hired him to do. You don't need to make excuses for it. You can come out and say, hey, Mr. Trump, Mr. President, rather, sorry, I don't like that about you. I don't like that thing that you did. Right? You can do that. It's okay. In fact, you need to do it so that he can become a better president and a better person. You need to let him know, like, I don't like this about you. I like this thing over here about you. I like the fact that you're outspoken and we have more access to any president ever in the history of our country. We can see his thoughts in real time. Right? And if you like the thoughts or dislike the thoughts, it doesn't matter. The fact that we can see them, that's a good thing, and you can use that. You can open up a Twitter account if you don't already have one, and you can tweet to him. You can respond to his tweets and say, "Hey, Mr. President, thank you so much for X, Y, and Z, and also please be faithful to your wife." Right? There's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to be a part of the Great Awakening, you're going to have to stop making excuses for people that you like. Think about this. Right now, the Democrats are once again doing what everybody always does, but it's, somehow it seems more egregious when they do it. Governor Cuomo gets up there and says America was never great. And all of these Democrats now have to come out and they're just making all these excuses for him. And you're sitting there, because I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this like, why are you making excuses for this? This is inexcusable. This is stupid. Why don't you just come out? Why don't you just tell that guy, come get on a microphone and say, listen, I said something really stupid. I'm sorry. I don't actually think that way. No. What they're doing is making excuses. And when you and I do that, then we adopt that strategy, and it's a loser. Let's find out how to lose and then not do that. Making excuses for people that represent you is a losing strategy. And it makes it so that everybody loses, so stop doing that. Don't make excuses for our president, for our elected officials. It's our job to hold these people accountable. Right? I'll tell you, here's a perfect one, right? Jeff Sessions. Can we just listen? I'm sure we're going to have a whole bunch of Q anonymous people writing into the show and saying, "Oh, how can you say anything bad about that?" What has that guy done since he was hired? What has he done? He hasn't done anything. He showed up, and his first day of work, he recused himself from the Mueller investigation. And then after that, he decided to let the whole world know that the biggest problem in the war on drugs is marijuana. Right? What has that guy done? Like, he literally, I can't think of anything that's been put onto, I'm sure the guy does some sort of work every day when he goes to the office. But what has he done? We can't make excuses for that, and we need to voice our displeasure to the people who are accountable to us. The President of the United States, we do not work for him. We do not work for Jeff Sessions. We do not work for Rand Paul and Trey Gowdy and all the people that we like. We don't work for them. They literally work for us. They are accountable to us. And we can make demands on them and say, hey, Jeff Sessions, you better start doing some work. And it better not be, well, we need to get rid of the marijuanas. It better be some real, actual damn work. You lazy bastard, Mr. Magoo, you better get your ass to work and start doing what the hell we tell you to do. And I'll tell you why. The reason I'm saying this is because you and I have a tendency to look at these people and say, well, I'm going to make excuses for them because they're on my team. No, that time is over. If the Great Awakening is going to happen, you're going to have to wake up to the fact that these people work for us. You are the boss. They are the employee. They are the subordinate. And you have considerable power over them, and you need to use it. And when you don't use it, that is a strategy to lose. You have to stop doing that. We all were just awakened to the fact, there's things like, do you guys, okay, here's a perfect example. A couple of years ago, there was an allegation made that Tom Brady, right, greatest quarterback who ever lived, had been deflating footballs, right? And the whole country went nuts. It was all over ESPN. It was on the headlines of newspapers. Fox News was talking about it, CNN, MSNBC. Like, it was a big deal. Like, oh, Tom Brady is deflating footballs. And I was over here thinking, like, oh, I didn't even know they had a rule for that. I didn't even know there was a rule for that. Why is there a rule? Like, obviously, Nobody's going to deflate the ball fully. What's the problem with deflating or inflating a ball to your own liking? Until this just got brought up, I wasn't even aware that this was a problem that was happening. Never heard of it. And there was all these people that had all this indignation, like, oh my God, he's a cheater. It's like, come on, dude, are you telling me that prior to this being on the news, you knew that there was a regulation in the National Football League regarding to the pounds per square inch of inflation on a football? No, you didn't, you son of a bitch. Shut up. You didn't know. You didn't know because I didn't know. Nobody knew, right? Nobody knew that that was even a thing. But now that we do know that it's a thing, it's like, oh, okay, all right, I guess that makes sense. So going forward, yeah, if this happens again, it'll be a big deal. But right now, the reason I bring that up is we just found out that people who have been leaving high offices of power, like the CIA and the FBI, and people that were admirals and generals in our military, were retired from service to their country, and yet they still retained their top secret clearance. They still retained their access to top secret information even though they were no longer employed. I did not know that that was even a problem. I didn't know that that was going on. And it wouldn't matter to me if it was Barack Obama who was president. It wouldn't matter to me if Hillary Clinton was right now president and this was coming to light and she was telling, retired General Mattis, hey, you can't have top secret clearance. If Hillary Clinton was president right now and it was James Mattis that was a retired general, right? And he still had his top secret clearance, I would still say, yeah, he can't have his clearance anymore. Why? Because he's unemployed. He doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? He doesn't work for the United States anymore. Therefore, and let me qualify that statement. Okay, when I served in the United States Marine Corps, once a Marine, always a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. But not really, right? When it comes to, if you are no longer active duty Marine Corps, if you want to go onto a military base, you have to have a particular type of identification card, which is not easy to get, by the way. I have one, and it was a lot of work to get it, right? Guess what? Like, even though I can still go onto a military base, what I cannot do as a United States Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. It's what they tell us. That's what they tell us in recruit training. It's what, it's one of our mottos, When I go on to a Marine Corps base, like, Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, which I was at just a couple years ago, or MCRD, or Camp Pendleton, those are the three that are closest to where I'm from, or the one out in Yuma. I've never actually even been there. I've been to Yuma, but not to that air base. I can go on to a Marine Corps base. What I cannot do is go to the armory. Now the military, right, the Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, taxpayers have paid a great deal of money to make me proficient in firearms. And I am. All that money that was spent on me was not so. I was educated, I was very good at it, and I can put it in the black from 300 out all day long, right? From all three positions. And yet, I still cannot go to the armory. Why? Why is it that I, a United States Marine, right? I get to say that for the rest of my life. Soldiers, they don't get to say that. There is no saying that says once a soldier, always a soldier. Or once a seaman, always a seaman. Because boy, that would just be hilarious if that was the saying. But once a Marine, always a Marine. And yet, I cannot go to the armory and check out an M16A2 service rifle. Why? Why can I not do that? Is it because I'm irresponsible? No. No. Is it because of a lack of trust? No. It has to do with one thing and one thing only. I'm unemployed by the Department of Defense. I can't check out a weapon, right? So if Hillary Clinton was president and she was revoking the top secret clearance of James Mattis, I would say, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And furthermore, I had no idea that these unemployed people still retain that. So we look at that, right? So take this, for example, take this as an example. We can take this thing and we can say, yes, Brennan and Stroke and who's the other guy that got fired from the FBI, Comey. Those people should not have top secret clearance. Not because I dislike them and I hope they burn in hell, but because they're unemployed. They do not work for the American people. They're not employed by the American people. Brennan is employed by CNN, right? Peter Stroke evidently is employed by GoFundMe. $300,000 in a day. Give me a break. So the point is, though, is that when our people do things that are bad, right? Because right now the left is looking at that saying, oh, you can't take top secret clearance away from Brennan. That's an infringement on his First Amendment right to free speech. It's like, no, it's not. That's not it. My fear is that, because these things they're cyclical. They have a way of coming back around, right? There is not going to be a Republican in the White House for eternity. In 8 years, according to the mathematics, right? Because it goes like this. From the 1980s, it goes Republicans for 12 years, Democrats for 8 years, Republicans for 8 years, Democrats for 8 years, and now a Republican is back in office. So mathematically speaking, there's going to be a Democrat in the White House in 6 years and some change. Right? So in 6 years, when there's a Democrat president again, and he revoked some right-leaning person's top secret clearance, are you going to bitch about it? Huh? Don't do that, because we've been doing this all. I'll give you. All right. Donald Trump has been unfaithful to his spouses. Don't make excuses for it. Don't stand there and be like, well, your president did it, Clinton did it. Don't do that. Just say, I don't accept that behavior. I don't like it, and I condemn it. However, I didn't hire him to correct the mistakes of his past. If he cheats on his wife while he's in office, I'm going to very vocally condemn that. Right? Do you believe that cheating on your wife is a bad thing? Right? Do you cheat on your wife? No? Yeah, neither do I. So if I see the President of the United States, I don't care who it is, cheating on your wife is wrong. And if he does that while he's in office, we're going to have a big effing problem. And I love Trump. Right? I love the things that he's doing. And he needs to do a lot more if this nation is going to be salvaged. If this nation is going to be made great again, he's going to have to do a lot more. Now you take you take the way that a lot of conservatives have had the back of John McCain. Listen, I know John McCain served his country and was put through horrible circumstances during Vietnam, whatever. Hey, I'm grateful to his service to our country, but the fact is that he is Benedict Arnold now, right? Benedict Arnold was loyal to the colonies until the day that he wasn't. And now he gets to go down in all of history, all of American history, as the Judas of America. And it can happen. And Benedict Arnold was best friends with George Washington. You think if you walked around with George Washington every day, that would be very similar to walking around with Jesus Christ every day? You think walking around with George Washington would be inspiring? and yet he fell. John McCain is now a traitor. I believe that. Like, the things that guy's done, don't make excuses for it. Don't make excuses for it. He is a senator in the state of Arizona. If you live in the state of Arizona, you need to call your congressman and say, I don't like that guy. And I want to see him brought to account for these things that he's done and said. Because we cannot continue to let our politicians get away with the systematic abuse that they've been getting away with for decades. Decades. We need to not have a losing strategy, and making excuses for bad behavior is a losing strategy. Right? Remember when Barack Obama redid the Patriot Act, and everybody on the right was, had their fur up. The fur started flying. Right? The claws came out. Oh my God, how can you do this horrible thing with the Patriot Act? It's like, dude, I was there. I remember. You were there too. You remember when George Bush signed the Patriot Act. What did we say? What did we say? The Patriot Act took away a number of constitutional rights. You have the right to face your accusers. Not now. Because of the Patriot Act, you can be arrested and taken to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and held there indefinitely because of an act of Congress called the Patriot Act. A House resolution, if you will. And where were you? I imagine you were standing right next to me as I stood there with my mouth shut. I said, okay, well, I guess, we were just attacked and, times are weird. He's a Republican, I'm a Republican. I guess I'll let it slide. No more. We have to let our leaders know. No more. You will not trample on our way of life anymore. The cost is demonstrably too high. Because of this trampling of our economy, our way of life, the amount of money that just keeps going to just bizarre causes, like higher education, for example. Every time the federal government makes more money available to to students, the institutions of higher learning, they just raise their rates. And they go get that money. They snatch it up. And the quality of education doesn't go up. In fact, it's gone down dramatically. So you need to hold your politicians to account on that. Because the cost has been demonstrated to be too high. Now we have a whole bunch of stupid kids walking around with the pride of academia. These kids walk around like, oh, I came out of academia, man, I'm smarter than the average. I'm smarter than so many people. That's costing our country. We have too many stupid people running around who have degrees. That's a huge problem, and we're starting to see that problem. Do you see what I'm saying? The cost for our lack of participation in our political system, our civic duty, we are now seeing the bill, and it's too high. We can't pay it. So the only way to correct this is to wake up, to participate in the Great Awakening. And one of the first things you're going to have to realize is this is going to be a very rude awakening. You're going to have to face some things in yourself that are going to be very uncomfortable. Like the fact that you and I, and I'm not telling you this is what you got to do, and I'm better than you, so I'm going to tell you what you got to do. I'm not saying that. We all do it. We all do it. We did it when President Bush signed the Patriot Act. We stood by and we said nothing. Right? And do you remember when Obama, Barack Obama came out and announced to the world that we killed Osama bin Laden? Do you remember that? Do you remember the story? Right? Oh, SEAL Team 6, they went in and they killed him. And then what happened? Then they dumped his body in the ocean. Right? Democrats said nothing. Hey, Do you remember looking at that thinking like, how you don't have anything to say about this? So you're saying that one of the most evil men of all times, right? Like who's the top 10? Like if you had a time machine and you could go back and kill somebody so as to save the lives of a whole bunch of other people or whatever, like, or just to kill a villain that the whole world agreed, like, yeah, that guy's got to go. I mean, number one on the list has got to be Adolf Hitler, right? Number two on the list, you know, if you're a Christian, then it's probably going to be Judas Iscariot, right? Like, I go back, I bust a cap Judas's ass, you know, just to say that I did it, right? Or Pol Pot, or Mao Zedong, or whatever. You know what I mean? There's a lot of evil, Genghis Khan. There's a lot of brutal people that deserve to have a pill put in their head, right? And Osama bin Laden gets to be on that list now, right? He gets to be on the list of like the top 10 worst people who ever lived in all of recorded history. So you got this guy, you killed this guy, right? And you didn't bring him back to the United States so that the medical examiners could verify that that's who that was? Oh, well, SEAL Team 6 all said that they killed him. I'm certain that they killed somebody. I'm certain that a lot of people look the same if they got a weird-ass beard. Sacha Baron Cohen looks just like Osama bin Laden if he puts a beard on and some makeup. Oh, I'm certain that everybody in SEAL Team 6 will tell you honestly, yes, we killed Osama bin Laden. I believe wholeheartedly that everybody in SEAL Team 6 believes that they killed Osama bin Laden. They believe it in their heart, and they could not be swayed from that perspective ever. Right? Because I believe that absolutely they killed somebody. I believe absolutely that the person they killed looked like Osama bin Laden. But I don't believe that Osama bin Laden died in that place in Pakistan or wherever where he was killed. And furthermore, I believe that neither did the President of the United States at the time. You took the world's foremost villain and just threw his body away in the ocean like garbage and without anybody inspecting it. Nobody has any questions about that? Nobody has any questions about that. Okay. All right. Right, and so when people on our side do it, you can't let them off the hook. The only way to get these people back in shape is you have to take care of your people. When people that have an R next to their name stray and start abusing their power, you are the one that has to let them know, like, there will be severe consequences if you betray the trust of me, the government of me. You betray my trust, you pay for it. Right? Because that's not going on the Democrat side. Every time those people do something like, you know, who's the guy from Minnesota? The Keith Ellison. All right, just got caught beating up women. And the Democrats are rushing to his defense. He's a woman beater. Now think about this, right? Remember back in, just like Bill Clinton, like the example I gave before, Bill Clinton was getting blowjobs from the help in the 90s, and the Republicans freaked out about it. Remember that? Right? Remember when that happened? And the Democrats, they were like, oh, you bunch of Puritans, what's wrong with you? Right? And then when President Trump comes out and it's clear that, he cheated on his wife with Stormy Daniels, the porn lawyer, look how quickly the Democrats ran to that story and said, oh my God, he's unfaithful to his wife. What a monster. See what I'm saying? Don't you want to avoid doing whatever it is that happens when that happens? Don't you want to avoid doing that? Right? The Democrats made excuses for Bill Clinton, and then when it was found out that Donald Trump was unfaithful to his wife, all of a sudden they became the Amish. They became the priests of Puritanica. Right? It's like, well, people. The problem with that is that everybody can see the inconsistency, whether they recognize it or not. everybody's brain is going to take in that information and mull it around. Whether that thought ever comes to the surface or not is a different story. But everybody's going to know it's like, well, that's inconsistent. You can't be a hedonist when it's your guy and a Puritan when it's the other guy. It doesn't work that way. You either believe in hedonism or you believe in puritanical beliefs. It's one or the other, but you can't have both. That's for damn sure. Right? John Brennan is a traitor to his country. And when John McCain does, things that are of that same sort of damage to the United States and damage to the fabric of our country, when John McCain does it, you have to stand against John McCain. Brennan's not one of us. He's one of them. Leave him alone. I mean, you need to call your congressman and say, listen, I hate John Brennan and this guy's a traitor and I want to see him prosecuted. But I'm saying if you're going to bang some drum and try to bring attention to the fact that people in the government are traitors, focus on your people. We need to get rid of them. We need to lead by example. And that starts with holding our own people to account. It means holding your own people to account. You can't hold them to account. Listen, the Democrats right now are pushing for socialism. Don't you understand that, number one, no Republican is going to convert and switch their party affiliation to Democrat while that's going on. And so that pretty much leaves only one result that's going to happen. They're going to lose Democratic voters. Because most Democrats, most liberals are sensible people, right? Most liberals are classic liberals. They don't want the government involved in anything. You know what I mean? They're small. Most liberals are closer to libertarians. And when they see the things that are going on in the Democratic Party, that's a huge turnoff to them. A huge turnoff. We need to show up and vote. See, there's another thing. Insulting people that don't vote. Do you vote? Are you the type of person that sits around saying, well, my vote doesn't count, so I'm not going to participate? It's like, well, okay, well then you've become an adopter of a losing strategy. That's a losing strategy. Figure out how to lose and then just don't do that. Not voting. My vote doesn't count. Okay, well that's a losing strategy. Don't do that. Right, what was the other thing? Oh, Admiral William McCraven. Admiral is the very highest. And Admiral McCraven was he was an admiral in the Navy when SEAL Team 6 went in and killed Osama bin Laden. So he was in charge when that happened. And see, this is one thing that's a real problem to me. And this is a question that I have, and I'm going to continue to try to get an answer on it. This man was in charge of the Navy. All right? That's what admiral means. This man was one of the people who was in charge of the Navy, the U.S. Navy, the one that's the most powerful in the history of the world. The one that has submarines that have, a single submarine has more nuclear warheads on it than any other nation, than a nation. Right? We have nuclear submarines that have enough nuclear warheads on it to make the planet extinct from every form of life in one shot. That's power, right? That guy was in charge of that, and a lot of other things. This guy comes out and rebukes the president of the he's retired, by the way. He rebukes the president for pulling John Brennan's card, and he says, "Oh, why don't you pull my card?" Like, why are I don't understand why this guy is saying it's like, dude, you're retired. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have access to top secret information unless somebody is trying to consult with you, like on a consulting basis, like, hey, we want to consult with you on this problem, so we're going to issue you clearance on this one matter, but you don't have your free pass anymore. The problem with this guy is and this is the problem that I've had this whole time is I don't know how many Benedict Arnolds there are like this guy, Mr. McCraven, and John Brennan, and John McCain. I don't know how many of these Benedict Arnolds are in and around military power. That's my, like, I don't live my life in fear, but this is one thought that I have that does kind of cause me to be fearful and it's because I don't know. But I'm going to gather information so that I can sort of try to form or to come up with an informed opinion. This guy's a problem. He's coming out and he's bashing the president. So this guy is an admiral of the Navy, that, you know, the same Navy that was bombing Syria and running wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and all these other places. And right now, the left is running to his defense, whereas just, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, or a year ago, or 5 years ago, these people would have been attacked by the left. Oh, you're a warmonger, you're rah, 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 you're one of these people, you're part of the military-industrial complex, you're the enemy. But now, the left is running to defend this guy. That's a losing strategy. Strategically, that's a loser. Don't do that. Don't, like, look. If somebody is doing something that is you know is wrong, is unconstitutional, doesn't make any sense, whatever, you need to call it out. Because that's how we're going to get our politicians to bend to our will and start bringing the truth to light. Bringing the truth to light about Hillary Clinton and the alleged trafficking in child sex trafficking. And the amount of money that they stole from Haiti. And the reason why so many people that worked for the Clintons killed themselves. Why did this happen? Right? We need to find out what it is that the government, that these people have been hiding from us for so long. Right? We need to reach out to our congresspeople and tell them, listen, Jeff Sessions, we want Julian Assange to be a free man. We want him pardoned and brought to the United States to live out the rest of his life free from the oppression of any government, particularly his own. Right? When Jeff Sessions goes after Julian Assange, you need to make a stand and say, no, you work for me. We did not hire you to go after Jeff Sessions and make weed even more illegal. Right? We do not need to, we don't want to become a part of the great asleep. The great asleep right now is advocating for socialism in America. Socialism never works. It never works. It never works. It always results in people dying from starvation. We have socialist programs in America and they all fail. They all result in fraud and waste. So yeah, because you're going to hear that. You're going to hear people, you'll hear people on the left say, oh, we already have socialism in America. And a lot of people like Ben Shapiro will say, no, we don't. Dude, yes, we do. Amtrak, you know, the railroad, you know, the train? Amtrak was taken over by the federal government and it loses like $1 billion every year. We lose $1 billion a year on Amtrak. Why? Why do we keep that around? Well, it's, you know, that's what socialism does. You say, oh, we have socialism in the post office. Yeah, we do. Guess what? Fraud and waste. Fraud and waste. Although the United States Postal Service is a great institution, right? It's a great institution, and I love it, and I'm eternally grateful that it is protected by the federal government. However, that organization needs to be privatized because it's being run like a complete shit show. You take every other, socialism program that we have in America, like welfare, that holds people down underneath the waters of poverty and chokes them out as they live out their lives. Every single example of socialism that we have in the United States, social welfare programs, they're all a complete disaster if you really look at what's going on in them. Farm subsidies. I've talked about this before economically. Listen, there are a lot of things that are going on in our country that are bad, and we are not going to fix them if we continue to use losing strategies. Here's a good way to lose. Focus on your enemy. If you want to win, you need to focus on yourself. Your enemy is your enemy, right? But if you're focused on him, you're not going to be working on yourself, bettering yourself and ensuring that you win. Trying to ensure that somebody else loses is a losing strategy. Focusing on you winning is a winning strategy. If you want to be a part of the Great Awakening, you're going to have to stop making excuses for your own people. And listen, Donald Trump is in a position right now where he needs the full thrust of the American people's power. All of it. We all need to stand behind this man, and that also includes calling him to account when he does stupid things. Why did he hire Omarosa? That lady was a snake and everybody knew it. We knew it from years ago when she was on the reality television show. She was a snake then. Why did he hire her? You should not be afraid to, when you go onto Twitter and you see his tweets, just ask him, like, well, if she was such a dog, why did you hire her? Why was she around that seat of power? Do you make bad hiring decisions? If that's the case, okay, that's fine. If he comes out and says, listen, you know what, I tell you the truth, I've just always had somebody else hire the people that I want. Right? I left it up to somebody else. Or whatever. There's nothing wrong with admitting that you did something stupid. We all do stupid things. Right? But it's like, dude, that lady is a snake. She's not a dog. She's a viper. And you had her in your inner circle? Why? You can tell me anything and I will accept it. Just let it be the truth. If you tell me the truth, I will accept it. But just know this going forward. Like, if you continue to make this mistake, you're putting us in danger by doing that, Mr. President. When you hire a viper to be in the same room that holds the highest seat of power on the planet, that puts me in danger. You're not acting on your own, Mr. President. You're running the country. You work for the American people. And when you bring in a rattlesnake, a sidewinder, into that office, you are putting, it'd be like literally bringing in a rattlesnake into the Oval Office. It's like, sir, if that snake bites you and you get sick for 2 weeks, that hurts the American people. If you get bit by that snake and you die, that hurts the American people. It hurts me because I'm an American people. Right? Don't bring snakes into the Oval Office. And you brought a snake into the Oval Office, and you did it with your eyes wide open. You knew who she was, and so did everybody else. It wasn't a secret to you. So let us stand together and let us tweet back to the president and be like, yeah, I agree with you. She's a dog. Why'd you hire her? And is this a mistake that you're going to duplicate? Are you going to hire more shitty people? Because if so, I'm going to need to know that before 2020. Because, Mr. President, if you keep hiring people like Omarosa, guess what? I'll be voting for whoever runs against you as a Republican in 2020. right? If you're making bad decisions, and if you don't whip Jeff Sessions into shape, and if you don't get that wall built, right? If you don't get rid of these people who come into our country illegally, 20 million of them, and they come here to drain our resources. They come here to drain our resources. That's an act of war. There's 20 million people in this country right now, in America right now, that are in our country illegally, and they're all on welfare and food stamps and public assistance. That's a whole nation worth of people. And they're just taking our money. Mr. President, if you don't fix that, if you don't have something concrete and in place and operational 6 months before the 2020 election, I'm voting for the other guy. You ran on building the wall and national security. If you do not have something in place, in concrete and operational 6 months before November of 2020, I'm voting for the other guy, the other Republican who runs against you. And if you win, if you get the nod, right? If that person does not get the nod to run for president as a Republican, I'm not going to vote for the Democrat. I simply won't vote. Right? That I can promise you. This is how we hold our people to account. Fear of loss. We have to let this guy know. No more Omarosas, Mr. President. No more failing to get that wall built. No more excuses for Jeff Sessions' inactivity. You can get somebody else in there, right? Get Trey Gowdy in there. I don't care that he's young, whatever. I don't care that he probably spends more money on his hair than most people do on their mortgage. That's fine. Get somebody else in there. Get somebody who's going to work. And not recuse himself. Oh, I don't want to do my job. I think I'll recuse myself. If we do not wake up to this, wake up to the fact that you have the power and you always did. You never lost it. You just misplaced it. You forgot that you had it. Whatever. Wake up to that fact. You have the power. And you always have. And now is the time to use it. Because our enemy is not using theirs. That's the thought for today. If you like the show, please hit subscribe. Please go to my website, archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com, and become a Patreon member, a Patreon supporter, or a PayPal person. You can go to archadvocate.com, become a monthly patron, or just throw some cash my way on PayPal. It keeps the show going, right? I do this show faithfully every day, 5 days a week, and I want it to get bigger. I need your help to do that. So do that and hit subscribe if you're on iTunes. Hit subscribe on SoundCloud, on Spotify, all those things. I really appreciate that, guy, that help, and all you guys that have helped me so far and the ones that are coming in the future. That's the show for today. I will talk to you on Monday. Have a good one.